All right, so we will convene the first budget hearing. It is 1:30 on November 30th, 2020. And we are honored to have the Veteran Services budget presentation. Brian, welcome aboard. And
thank you, sir.
Welcome to your first budget presentation as with the Veteran Services Commission. So anyway, we do stream it, just the audio, not the video. And we have plenty of time for you to tell us what your plans are, Brian, for the long term as well as the short term. So we're anxious to hear.
We will do that. So
if you could actually just introduce everybody for the record. So
we have Scott Leonard here that's from the office, and then Rick Ray, who is from our board. So he's the president of the Veteran Service Commission.
Great.
So
thank you.
They will be adding color commentary as we go along the presentation. So I want to start off with what our office actually does. So we can outline what we do with these bullet points right here. We provide VA benefit assistance. That's the primary function of what our office does. And then we have emergency financial assistance, and I'll go into detail on what that is. We provide transportation. We do burial assistance. We do document assistance. We do outreach and referrals. And then we work with veteran organizations such as the VFW, American Legion, AMVETS, and then other veterans programs. And I'll go into not a lot of detail, but some detail on this information. So the first bullet was VA benefit assistance. What is that? Well, the main one that everybody knows is service-connected disability compensation. So that's if you are in Afghanistan and you were, a roadside bomb and something happened to you, when you come back, you may have repercussions from that, and you would get a certain percent disability. A lot of veterans, whenever they come back, they're fine. They just want to get out, and then once they're in, they're out for a little while. They'll start to have some health issues, and we'll work through that. Perfect example is my father. He was, Vietnam, and has had issues with Agent Orange. So he ended up, but it took years for that to happen. So he is somebody who is that top one, which is service-connected disability compensation. So we help the veterans through the myriad of paperwork that it takes to do one of those, and then the follow-up as well. The next one is pension. It's not what you would generally think of as pension. It's actually aid and assistance, which is where if we need somebody, just one of the examples, to stay in their home. So they may need help to be able to stay in their home. So there's different caveats that go with that to be able to perform that function, and we help out with the paperwork there. The next one is VA health care, which is if you meet one of, for example, if you've got a service-connected disability or one of the other things that are up here, then you may qualify for VA health care. So working through those issues. The next one is long-term care. That would be, for example, Ohio has 2 VA nursing homes, for lack of a better word. Or there's nursing homes here in Delaware County. There's one, right? Which one is that?
There's a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, the Arbors is one that the VA Healthcare, Veterans Health Administration contracts with, kind of regionally. So veterans that have a 70% or more service-connected disability rating and they need long-term care or rehab, they can go there and stay at no cost.
Where else can they go then? You mentioned there were 2 other
Arbors and
main.
Yeah, the Veterans Homes, Ohio Veterans Homes.
Yes.
Yeah, Sandusky, the old Soldier Sailors Home.
Okay.
Which has been there a long time. And then a newer one, it's not so new now, but we call it the newer one, is in Georgetown, near Miami of Ohio University.
Oh, okay.
So one north and one
So
south.
there's just 2. We need one in Central Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we help with the, getting them access, getting veterans access to that. The next one is survivor pension dependency indemnity compensation. And that's to where if you have a spouse that, the service member was one of those, and then the spouse, the veteran passes away, some of those benefits then, would go on to the spouse. So to help the spouse through that process, because unfortunately, the VA just doesn't roll that stuff over. A complete new claim has to be entered in for that individual. So, again, lots of forms with the VA. The next one is VA home loan assistance. So that's where if you're a veteran, you come out, you can get a VA home loan, which is a certain amount that is through the VA. And I actually have my home was done through it. And, there's just, like typical VA stuff, there's hoops that you have to go through in order to act. It's a great program, but you have to be able to jump through the hoops. The next one is education benefits, GI Bill, post 9/11 GI Bill, those benefits. And the last one is ESGR. It stands for Employer Support for Guard and Reserve. And that's actually something new that we're going to start doing. It's a outreach to make sure that the employers in Delaware County understand, what guard is, what reserve is, what they're, required to do by law, what they can do to help the process out. So that way, if there's a way that we can insert ourselves to solve a situation, that there isn't, a butting of heads, to where hopefully, the service member provides, as an employee, something additional that a general employee wouldn't, as far as, whether it be, experience or being calm in situations, things like that, to where, we want to try and solve problems before it becomes an issue. So that's something that we're going to start doing as far as more outreach with the Guard and Reserve issues. So with the VA benefit assistance in 2019, the average VA compensation claims was, we did 14 to 19 per month. And just this past month, we're above that. Scott, just this past month, has done 14, which is a new high. So we're actually above this number for some reason in November. The average initial time to complete a claim is 3 to 4 hours, and then the follow-up is about 4 hours. So you can see it's about a day to do each one of these claims, as far as the initial and the follow-up. And that may be, over a period of month, a week, months. But, it takes some time to do each one of these claims. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. This is an average. So this right here is the federal dollars that have been brought into Delaware County through the Veteran Service Office. As you can see, a majority of it is with the compensation and pension that we were discussing earlier. But, medical care is still it's a significant number. All right, so that's it for the first bullet. The next bullet down is emergency financial assistance. This is where we provide short-term assistance for veterans that, there aren't a lot of other options available. Generally, it's rent, utilities, medical needs, food. On average, we get 7 applicants, and then we assist 5 to 6 applicants. In 2019, $79,000 was the amount that was given out. It varies from year to year. This year is, you would think it would be up with COVID, but it's actually just down a little bit from where that number is.
The 79,000, was that, you mean, went to an individual?
Went to the actual veteran. So a veteran comes in, has a need. So for example, say they're behind on rent because of COVID, and they lost their job. They can come into us. We will, sit down with them, find out what's going on, find the bills, get the story, and then we'll actually bring it in front of the Veteran Service Commission. And the commissioners will then, hear the case, and they'll decide whether, based off of our standard operating procedure, as far as the rules that are outlined as to what we can and can't do, how much we can and can't do, how many times a person can come in, as to whether that person receives assistance. And then the award then is handed, that money's generally not handed out to the person. So we get the bills, and then we actually pay those bills.
So that would be an individual, on average, would receive 79,000?
No, that's for the total year, for everybody.
That's the full year, wow.
So that's for everyone that comes in.
Boy, that's not much with,
you know, the idea
For
isn't
a
to
full
be
year.
a supplemental, you know, income for the veteran. The idea is that if they're running on a hard time and something's come up, for us to be able to get them through, because they may be between, you know, if somebody has PTSD and they're a hard time finding a job or keeping a job. The idea is to provide some sort of a cushion for that individual until we can get them some help and then get them back on their feet, so that way they're not coming to us anymore. That's
Okay.
the idea behind the law that enables this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, put it another way, it's about $1,000 a month per vet who receives assistance.
Correct.
So, you know, if you're serving 6
Yeah.
a month times 12 months, I mean, you're going to be
Yeah.
in that range.
Yes.
So
So-
when a vet comes in for assistance, they're getting roughly $1,000.
Right, and some will be higher and some will be lower.
Okay.
In the future, we want to work more closely with Job and Family Services. They have in the past, but it's kind of, you know, quelled off. We've met with Job and Family Services. Actually, Wayne is having a meeting with them tomorrow to where we can plug into them more. So
Right.
that way, if we've got people that need help with resume writing, you know, their how means jobs, all those different avenues. Another one is with Brandon, you know, at United Way. And then we've also met with Helpline to, you know, find all the different avenues that we can help veterans with. So that way, when they're coming in, we're just not, you know, helping them out with something and then they have to figure everything else out. We're trying to help them along the way. Another thing that we're looking at is increase of in-home type visits, perhaps using, you know, the small bus that we've got as a mobile office to go out to somebody's site that if, you know, they're having problems with, you know, they can't, you know, just recently we had somebody that, you know, was behind on car payments and insurance and all those things. That person should actually be on the road until we take care of it. So to use this to be able to go out to the individual and take care of those visits. And then the other thing would be, you know, the MASH pantry that's here in town to work with them more closely.
I got to ask, what does MASH stand for?
I don't know what, I think it's based off of, you know, the
TV
you know,
show?
Yeah.
Mobile
Yeah,
Primary
yeah.
Surgical
I-
Hospital?
We got somebody in the back.
The expert.
Oh, good, okay.
Not an expert, however, the name, it's an acronym, but it stands for Military and Service Heroes.
Ah,
What
Oh.
the person does, they have 3 places in Franklin County and 1 in Delaware County. What they do is provide food, stuffs mainly. They also have clothing and miscellaneous, you know, socks and whatever, only for veterans. You bring in your DD-214, which is proof that you're a veteran. They figure it all out, and then they give you whatever you need, basically.
It's like a people in need, but for veterans. And it's,
Okay.
The
Oh,
location
great.
is whenever you're heading out on 36 going east of town, as soon as you pass underneath the walking overpass, right there, it's just on the south side. There's a little, I think there used to be a paint place there.
Right on East Main Street, where the liquor store used to be right next to that.
Yeah. Yep.
So Brian, 2 comments. One, the van, getting better use of that van, I think, is something that's important. Seeing it parked up there isn't helping anyone, so I applaud the idea of getting it out, using your term, a mobile office, so. And the other thing you did mention, you talked about JFS helpline. What about Veterans Court? Is there a role for your department to help with the Veterans Court? Are you familiar?
We do that. So we actually.
You didn't mention that, that's the reason I was asking.
Right. Because we don't provide financial assistance with the Veterans Court program.
But
If they're-
getting people directed or?
If they would need it, then they could get directed towards us from Judge Hemder. So we have a presence there, and,
Oh,
you
that's
know, it's.
great, yeah.
We have
Should.
provided them with monies.
Right, I'll get to that. We actually fund that program.
Okay, good.
All right. So the next one's transportation services. We provide free round-trip service to VA medical centers. That's required by the revised code. In 2018, 2019, we transported an average of 40 veterans per month. 2020, it's dipped down some because the VA center, like most hospitals, has, you know, closed itself off to certain services. They're trying to do more things, you know, online. We currently use the data bus because of our staff changes that have occurred. We currently don't have a driver. So the data bus has been doing an excellent job in helping us. The problem is the data bus has limitations as far as when they can and can't go. So, it's something where the veteran needs a ride, we're able to hook them up with data, and, based off the two schedules, we're able to provide, through data, them getting to the Veterans Center.
Can you reimburse the data?
Yes, and then we reimburse data.
How efficient is that?
It's somewhat efficient from the mindset that as long as the person has their, medical stuff done within a certain time, it works. And we work with the veterans to make sure that they understand the limitations of data. So it is working, but can it be better? Yes, and that's something that we're gonna work towards as far as getting this better. The advantage of data is that they're completely ADA compliant. So, where they can, strap wheelchairs in and all that in accordance with the latest laws, they have that capability. Whereas we do not currently possess that capability.
Oh, I see, on your van?
Correct.
Okay.
Our next hire will actually be a transportation officer that's going to be to try and figure out the best way to provide service for veterans in the county. This is one that we can definitely improve much on.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we're going to work through as far as problems, is it makes sense to, the continued use of the data bus within their current limits. Increasing our mobility disability capabilities. Does that make sense as far as us being, if data bus can do it, does it make sense for us to have that capability? Is there a need? Expand the locations and times offered to veterans. Transports to medical locations other than VA centers. Right now, the only thing that we do is transport to a VA center. But if you've got a veteran that's got a mobility issue and they're, events at Ohio Health, currently we don't,
Right, yeah.
bring them to that location. We also want to make sure that all the transports that we're doing are in accordance with laws and regulations, big one being ADA. And then after COVID, we really want to expand it to look and see, does it make sense for us to use, from a cost as well as a service standpoint, things such as Uber. So these are all different things that we need to look at, and we need to get down and, find out what's the best way for us, from an economic as well as a service standpoint to provide the best service.
I wondered how many vets need just transportation to see a regular doctor, that doc would not be at the VA center.
And that's data that we need to dig up.
Yeah, that's that, yeah. I would think that would be a, there would be a lot of
with
appointments.
mobility issues that may need it, that
Yeah.
we're not helping right now, correct.
Okay, that's good that you're looking at that.
The next thing we do is provide burial assistance. So we provide financial benefits within certain circumstances. We also do indigent burials. We actually own sites out at the Oak Grove Cemetery for that. We assemble and supply the burial markers. Actually, that's a significant cost. We spend about $10,000 each year for the bronze markers, to where for veterans that pass away, we hand those out to the veteran organizations that do the burials. They get those from us. And ones that are damaged, either from mowing or age or whatever, we replace those as well, and we work with the veteran organizations to do that. We also pay for the mileage for the veteran organizations to go to the funeral honors. That's run through our program. In the future, we want to work more closely with funeral homes and cemeteries, ensuring that the burials have both active military as well as the veteran organizations. Sometimes they've got one and not the other. We want to work with them to where they get both. And there's also, we want to work with the funeral homes to where they understand that when they write the death certificate, that they understand that there's potential implications for VA benefits. For example, if the death is due to an ailment that's with a service-connected disability, then there are benefits that can go on to the spouse. If that's not documented correctly, then that can cause a significant delay in time for the spouse to receive those benefits. So it's an education part to make sure that the funeral homes are constantly trained to understand this. So that's something else that we want to do. Next thing we do is document assistance. There was lots of, significant papers, discharge papers destroyed in the fire in 1973. So everybody before 1973 that was discharged from a certain, I think it was Army,
Army and Air Force, Army and Air Force with.
through certain names,
yeah,
those
first
records
letter,
are
last name.
lost. So there's a process of trying to get those records and recreate records. So that's something our office helps with. We work with the Record Center as far as the ID card assistance. We certify discharges in the office. And we're currently working on a notary program to where we want to provide that service to veterans, to where, it's what I call low-hanging fruit. It's something that's not going to take much to get done, but I think would provide a great service to veterans as far as being able to do a free notary for them.
Where was the fire?
At the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis in July '73. It's one of the largest historically significant fires and loss of information in,
Oh, my gosh.
in the history of humanity, along with some other things throughout history. Yeah. Yeah, that first bullet point on that last one is very significant. You cannot access benefits without your discharge. Can't do it. And we do literally hundreds of those a year.
You can't ask, I'm sorry, you
You
can't.
can't access benefits without your discharge or your 214.
Okay.
Can't, it's impossible.
That's one of the first things that we ask is for, when
Yeah.
people are coming in, we need
Right.
their discharge papers.
So that's a tremendously significant service and thing that we do. We track them down all over the country. Yeah.
But there's a way to piece
Interesting.
it together. It just
Are
takes
are there
time.
a lot of veterans that come in without the discharge?
Oh, yes.
I was afraid of that.
And you
Yeah.
can't do much. You can't even tell them really accurate information about what their service entitles them to without that. And then you can't access it without that
You just think
either,
about
so
Vietnam,
it's a big deal.
July of
Yes,
73, so
yeah,
everything that was
yeah,
Vietnam
that's right.
related.
68, 70 age
It
rooms.
was winding
You bet.
down in
Yep.
73.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh.
All right, the next thing that we're going to do is, look at our outreach. Right now, we currently use Spectrum Cable, the data bus, billboards, and then also some radio. We understand that cable is starting to dwindle down. We want to do some more outreach from different points. For example, social media, radio, local TV, maybe billboards, getting away from just everything being into cable and one specific company within cable. If we do that, we're going to look at, we've never really looked at doing an analysis of, how the outreach that we've done, how it's performed. That's something we want to do as far as looking at analysis of, does our outreach work? So that way we can adjust how we, do the outreach to make sure we hit the most number of people. And then we also think that moving to the historic courthouse is going to significantly increase our contact.
Question, there isn't a master mailing list of veterans in the county? You don't have a list of,
No. That doesn't exist anywhere. Veteran status is protected information. The only way you'll know someone's a veteran is if they self-identify or provide proof, yeah.
ideally, that's the best way.
That would be the best
communicate.
way, but unfortunately,
You can voluntarily ask, I guess, from to provide it to you.
Sure.
Do you have a mailing list that you developed or growing as you get that information, or?
no, we
No.
do not. It's something that we've, honestly, I don't know if it's ever been thought of as far
If
as,
you have
Well, we have
a newsletter or some sort of way of communicating, I
Right.
think you'd find that much more effective than trying to use the media. Cable is probably it's too limited in the audience, but coming from the media background, none of those options are going to get the message out to the numbers that you're looking for.
Right.
But to the degree you could develop a mailing list, you know what you've got, and then you have to build on that, and veterans know veterans. But over time, 6 months to a year, I think you're not gonna get 100%, but you probably have a fairly healthy,
Right.
if you have their emails and their mailing, and then you work out some sort of newsletters or something.
Right.
Something comes up that's changed,
Right.
how to let them know about it, et cetera.
Yeah, that's
Just an
something
observation.
that I don't think's ever came up over there. At least the month that I've been over there, it hasn't.
Well, I'm not a veteran. I have a son-in-law who's a veteran. Veterans benefits are the first thing in his mind.
Right,
But, he's 30 years old, and reaching that audience would be good for a number of reasons.
Right,
One,
right.
to get them involved. Two, to let them know about benefits that they may down the road need that they don't think about.
right. And I think that's something that's been done in the past where the primary focus has been on somebody that's of a certain, age range that's, up in the age. And I think that there's been less of a focus on people that are just right out of the service because they're not thinking about it right now. So.
I don't make
yeah.
that distinction. A veteran to me is a veteran, should serve regardless, and should do everything you can to help all of them.
Correct.
Just an observation.
Right, no, that's a great idea. We're open for any ideas as far as we go forward and try to promote the office.
We have done a mass mailing in the past, so,
Mass mailings. to
mass
veterans.
mailing, yes. Yeah, so we did generate a list,
So you
for
have,
for
you
that.
have a list of some form.
I think so, yeah.
Do
I'm sure we
service- Do other veterans?
We just haven't done it recently.
Around 10,000 veterans we sent mailings to.
Yeah, it was pretty significant. It was a big job, yeah.
But if you get their email addresses,
Right, then we can do it.
then that becomes
No cost.
pretty,
Well, yeah, that's
pretty
different.
easy way to communicate. Now, not everybody may provide it, some may not even have an email address, but
Right.
most do anymore.
Right.
Well, do veterans organizations share their information, their membership information with you? You can take your mask off, sir.
Yeah, if you would,
When you, if you would,
Just so
because
we-
it's hard to hear.
Here's
Thank
the
you.
thing, I'm the commander of American Legion here in Delaware and Disabled American Veterans. It's hard for us, the people won't volunteer their emails, for the most part. We've got, in our post, we've probably got 200 and some disabled American veterans with probably 20 emails. Because they don't want to share that information. But keep in mind, a lot of the DAV people are Vietnam type people, and American Legion, a lot of the people didn't have emails, but have passed since.
Sure.
But we're still trying, every month, we try to get, when we have the meetings, we,
Try
put the
it.
email down, if you can, if you want to.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think we've got any new emails in the past couple of years.
Well, I'm
Okay.
sure some of them worry, come from that age group, a lot of them worry about abuse of those email addresses, or are you passing on to somebody else? They've got to be reassured that it's not going anywhere.
Right. It's definitely something that we can look at, and we do have a social media presence, but it needs to be grown, because right now it's got some, followers, but not to the point to where
Well-
it probably needs to be.
And I know one of your first meetings, when we met, was with Jane Hawes, our communications director. So Jane gave Brian a lot of good ideas, too.
Yep, and I'll keep in touch with Jane, because that's an expertise that we, would like to continue to
Yeah.
utilize.
It's just an observation.
Yep.
Just,
No,
it doesn't matter what services you have, if they're not aware of it,
Right.
correct.
it becomes irrelevant because you don't know
Right.
who to ask.
Well,
Right.
we've got home addresses as of 5 years ago, but a lot of people moved.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Going forward, we also want to spend more time with veteran service organizations. The big one being business, community, as far as what I mentioned before, as far as ESGR. We want to try, and much of what we've already talked about is what we're going to, what we're looking at doing in 2022 is having a veteran service office, but somebody to help us with, focusing in on some of this outreach. To try and to help as many people as we possibly can. Something else that we're doing is we're bringing back the Vet Center to Delaware County. The Vet Center is an organization that's not through the VA, but is funded via the VA, and it's a primarily mental health, but they do other things as well. They do marriage counseling, significant amounts of counseling is what they do.
Have you talked to Delaware County Mental Health?
No, we just met with the vet center on Wednesday, just this past Wednesday. So I can meet with mental health.
So you don't duplicate or replicate things that are
Right.
already out
And
there?
I doubt if it would be duplicated just based off of what these individuals do as far as where they're primarily concerned and focused in on things like PTSD from a military standpoint. As far as the marriage counseling, the constant moves and, all the hardships that the military can put in, especially whenever a military member where they're high speed, for 20 years, and they come out of the military and now they're, okay, what now? And, that sometimes causes friction in relationships. So, the primary focus of the services that they provide are specific to military, but I agree. I think that they're, I can reach out to
You need
mental
to,
health.
Diane, and any one of us would be happy to coordinate a meeting.
Yep. And then really what they need from us is a place to work out of. So took them over to the historic courthouse and showed them what our offices are, as well as some of our conference rooms that we have downstairs, and those will work for them. So
Great.
it'll be good. And the other nice thing is that they come up here, so people don't have to drive down to Columbus. So that's a great aspect of what they do. And then we're also working closer with as you mentioned before, Commissioner Merrill, the municipal court, the veteran
That
special
last
docket.
sentence bothers me.
Our fund has,
But has not recently been involved.
our Veteran Service Office funds the program. Well, I'm there, but we have some people, the commissioners. So we have a couple of commissioners that attend the meetings. The problem is that they haven't been pushed into the treatment team. So they're there to promote the Veteran Service Office and to do those things. It's just been a lack of communication between them and Judge Hemmeter to get them back in the treatment team, which we've taken care of. So the Veteran Service Office now meets before the actual special docket to where we're a part of the treatment team
good.
to discuss the needs, for example, the financial assistance and those things. So that problem has been corrected. It wasn't in place prior for a while. It took a lull, and now it's back. So,
Every time I go to one of the graduations, I leave there uplifted and very excited about someone who got their life
Yes.
turned around. It's and the same thing in the drug court. It's a very special thing that can change lives. And
Yes.
there is a role for veteran services.
yep, I'm actually a mentor of it. So, and we discussed last time with Judge Hemmeter the idea of using our offices, or when it's nice out front, the plaza is a place to do those graduations now.
Oh, good.
So that's something that'll be in place. All right, so looking at our organizational chart, this was the chart in 2019. You can see there was a executive director, financial officer, an admin person, person that did transportation, then we had a part-time driver, and then a veteran service officer. What we're looking at for next year is just basically adding myself to that list. So everything else, is pretty close to being the same. And then for 2022, the big change there would be adding a person that's a veteran service officer as well, but somebody that would help with the outreach. So that's what we're looking at as far as organizational charts. As far as our budget,
Can you go back to the next year's one? The one before that? So, just a question, it seems like you have the office manager position, but it seems like in hearing the presentation and the outreach, social media, mean, finding more people to get more services seems very important to the mission. I mean, is it, you know,
That could be,
I'm just, you know.
right? Right.
As a thought.
The issue is that, you know, somebody that we would have in as an office person, you know, the salary would be much less than somebody that would be a CVSO. That's the reason why we looked at it from that point as far as, you know, attacking things in that manner. But that would be something that we could definitely, you know, potentially look at.
From the outreach, what's the ideal person? Is it
Can we-
somebody that's more like, somebody that's a veteran services officer that does outreach, or is it more like
Ideally, that's what we would,
Marissa that
ideally, because the office isn't that big, and if you have a couple people that are out on quarantine, we want to be able to still provide those services, or if there's somebody that's, you know, out on vacation or whatever, if we've got 2 people that are out, we want to still be able to provide services. So what I want to do is to make sure that we're 3 deep in everybody knowing what's going on, so that way we can continue those services. Ideally, I would want somebody that's trained as a veteran service officer, so they know what's going on there, as well as being able to provide, you know, to do outreach, so both. Because we're small enough to where somebody can't, you know, specialize in one entity. We need to know how to do each other's jobs. So I see myself being a part of that role as far as doing the outreach. There's 2022 or 2023. And then for the 2021 budget, you know, our 2020 appropriated budget was 744, and then the whole thing for my cost is 146. So you add that to the 744, that gets us close to where we were looking at the initial VSC stands for Veteran Service Commission, so my board, they initially approved a budget of $950,000. And then I sent that up, and Mike and Karen met with me, and we adjusted fire. So to compensate some for
Adjusted
the
fire.
2021 budget memo, we adjusted down the advertising and legal notices. And that's exactly, Commissioner Merrill, my thought was exactly what you were thinking, is that the amount of money that we were spending there, I don't know if we were getting the return on the investment for what was going on. So rather than just spending a bunch of money there, I would rather reduce that line item and have a chance to really look at it and study it than, you know, to just spend that money again. And then our client services, which is the financial assistance, I adjusted that down from $100,000 to $70,000. So I said that the most that we had spent within the last several years was $79,000. So I thought the $70,000 was a good amount for that particular line item. And then the office person, you know, or whether we look at it and decide, you know, it's an outreach person and that would be later, you know, we're going to look at potentially starting that person later on in the year. And then, you know, previously we had part-time drivers. I don't know if we're going to need part-time drivers. If we do, then it would be after September 1st. We previously had them. I don't know if we're going to need them based off of what the transportation officer is going to find as far as them being able to drive, as well as what we're doing right now with data, you know, Uber, all those different things to provide that service. Do we need that? So that's something that we want to research before we put that down, so we felt that we could push that out a ways yet. So what we are requesting for our budget for fiscal year 21 is $840. That's splitting the difference between 2020 and what we initially requested in our 2021 budget. However, there's one caveat to that, and that is line item 5348, which is that emergency financial assistance. We're required to do that for the ORC. So if we get a lot of that, we may need to come in front of the board to request additional funding.
Yeah.
So some notices from our 2021 budget that you may not know. As I mentioned before, the grave markers, those bronze markers, we pay for those. Food, 5294, food service supplies, we fund cards for emergency assistance. Those right now, we've got to deal with Aldi's to where we provide those. We do the travel reimbursement for veterans groups doing funeral honors. We've got an annual conference. We don't know if that's going to happen this year. There's required training that we have to go to every year as far as, keeping up with continuing education hours. We fund the annual Veterans Breakfast, the payment in there for the data bus for the VA Medical Center rides. That may stay the same. It may decrease if we start doing more of the stuff ourselves. We actually fund the special docket for the municipal court, so that entire program is funded by us. And then we do the catering services for Operation Forever Grateful. So those are some items that you may not have known that the Veteran Service budget funds. So what is the funding mechanism for us? In the ORC, it talks about a 0.5 mil from the inside mills, and then whatever funds are not spent is returned to the general fund. So what is that? Well, if you look at what this slide shows you on the left is that Delaware County has an excellent property value as far as if you can see where we're at compared to everyone else. But this also shows you what our budget was in 2019, then I've got 2020, and then what I propose for 2021. So if you can, these are us and then the counties that surround us. Now, the one caveat for Franklin County, Hamilton County, and Cuyahoga County is generally the three Cs have a small but a veteran service office or whatever you want to call it in that city as well that is completely separate from the county funding. So this right here are the numbers for the counties that surround us, and it shows the percentage of use. So for example, Licking is using 100% of the amount that they're allocated. Union County actually spends more than the amount. And we're at, 18% for this year, and what we're proposing for next year is a little over 20%. So let's continue on. So let's look at the next ring out past that. So these are all the counties that touch the counties that are out from us. So if you look at kind of our light counties there, you can see Fairfield, the lowest one of the group looks to be, as far as a percent standpoint, Madison, Champaign, but you can look at the amounts that are up there. Muskegon's at 879, Richland's at 843, just again give you an idea of where we're at compared to the other counties. And then if we look at light counties, so I went, with the typical counties that we're competing against, and you can see where one of the counties that was mentioned to me as far as a county that runs a great office is Trumbull County. So you can see where they're at. Again, these are numbers for those that are like us.
Did you put Knox up there? I've heard good things
Knox
about Knox.
Would be,
Oh, good, okay, okay. I've heard there.
Ron, I think this is great. To me, this is all about service provided.
I'm going to get,
Do you have that?
I'm going to get to that.
Okay. Perfect.
So, what's the difference from funding? With the light counties, staffing is generally 7 with an outside driving function, or else they have 6 and they have a transportation officer and drivers. One of the difference between us and some of those light counties that, that's budget is higher is that they advertise dental benefits if they're below a certain threshold of poverty level and do not have VA or other dental benefits. We've helped people out with dental assistance, but it's just been through the financial assistance program. We don't claim to have a dental program. Medina County, as well as a couple other counties, offer a free notary to veterans. That's something that we're working on. Several counties advertise a metal recovery program that's through the VA. We just put that on our website to help out with that. And then, there's the vet center implementation that I discussed that these counties, also have, that in the past has, fallen off for us. So, we're catching up with where those counties are right now. Our goal is to get better than those other counties.
spending more money doesn't make you better.
Correct.
Spending money effectively, for example, I don't believe we don't charge rent, do we, for the building?
No.
So that's a number that's not in your numbers, theoretically.
Well, yeah, correct. I would have to find out from the other counties whether they're charged rent as well.
That's not but that really wasn't my point. My point is, from the questions we've asked, it's obvious we have a strong interest in helping the veterans, but how we do that efficiently, and it really, from my perspective, is irrelevant what some other county does.
Well, except for the good
Well-
counties, the counties that we want to try and emulate and perform like they are. If people say, Trumbull County, runs an excellent program. Okay, why does Trumbull County run an excellent program? And let's emulate what they're doing, and let's not just emulate it, let's do better than they are. And we could do it for a better cost, correct?
For example, you talk about free notary. Well, that seems like a no-brainer. There's really no cost. If you have an office manager, get your notary.
Correct.
So there's really no cost once they get the
But that's
notary. So it's easy to provide that, or have maybe a couple people in the department, but it's.
Correct. But there's lots of counties that don't do it. There's some that do, and you're right, it's not that expensive. It's a time effort. Why don't other counties do it? I don't know. It's something that we can do that's cheap, that provides a service to the veterans, it's an easy win.
So I guess I don't think I'm communicating very well. As a commissioner, our job is to make sure we spend the taxpayers' dollars efficiently. I have found that when you come from small newspapers, no one has one job. You usually have 2 or 3 jobs. So when you say office manager, what does that mean? Is that somebody who's going to sit there, wait for somebody to come in the door and then provide a service? Or are they going to initiate? Can they do some of the media stuff we talked about, trying to put a mailing list together? So it's how the job is designed which makes it effective.
I would like to see each one of us to do multiple things. I think we need to go,
That's my point.
I think we need to do, what I've told Scott is we need to be 3 deep. So each person, each function that we do, there needs to be at least 3 people that know how to do that. So that way if somebody, this goes back to my emergency management continuity of operations, is that if somebody goes down, then somebody else has to be able to do it. So for example, purchasing, do we have at least 3 people that know how to do purchasing? The veterans doing burial benefits, do at least 3 people know how to do those? And on and on and on. All the different things that we do, we need to make sure that at least 3 people know how to do each one of those functions. And not just the functions that we're doing now, but the functions that we're going to try and expand in the future as far as increasing our service to the veterans of Delaware County.
So do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes. So again, we want to try and emulate, Trumbull, heard good things about Medina, and I've heard good things about Fairfield. The big thing being that we would like to do much more outreach and do more services to the field. So that way the veterans that have a hard time coming in, we can still provide those services.
Let me try this one more time. To emulate what some other county may be doing well or doing poorly is not the point. It's what we do to best serve the veterans in our county. That should be our template, not trying to match what another county may be doing poorly or well.
Right. I agree, but there may be some things that they're doing well that we can learn from to be able to do a better job internally. But the big point is, I think the last bullet, which is, changing our mindset from pick from the services that we provide to how can we best serve you, the veteran.
And you'll hear that from this commissioner, I believe the other commissioners all the time. How do we best serve the commissioners?
Right.
And that's the point I'm trying to verbalize.
The
The
veterans.
outreach, all those things to let them know about the services is important. We can't just be sitting waiting for somebody to walk in the door.
Correct.
And I sometimes feel that's how we've, and I may be all wrong in my perception, but sometimes I feel that's how we've operated. And again, if I'm wrong, and I apologize in advance, but
No, we definitely need more outreach, and I think I applaud you for,
I think we need to be proactive instead of,
Yes.
you know, maybe waiting. For example, you know, putting Wayne in the, you know, bus that we're going to call a mobile office and send him out to do financial assistance visits.
yeah.
You know, to me, that's a proactive thing. And that's something that we don't have to necessarily, I think once word gets out that we're doing that will probably spread amongst, you know, some of the veterans community. Now, we need to promote that. If it's working and it's doing well and there's not a hiccup with it, then, you know, promote it and get that going, because that's a service that I think is a big one to help veterans out.
And when,
Yeah.
a possibility, when you already said you're pleased about the move. When you get moved, have an open house for veterans. Use that as a tool to get those email addresses. You know, have some sort of prize or something for them to fill out to get them. Get them excited about that facility and the ease of getting into that facility, which is going to be much easier with the handicap parking close by, et
Yes.
cetera. But have an open house to show off those facilities and get the veterans in the county excited. And then the other veterans can get excited because they're excited. That's a suggestion. But
You know, we've talked about that, as well as the idea of doing something with Judge Hemmeter. As soon as that opens up, you know, to do something in there with the Veterans Court. You know, once, you know, some of the COVID starts going down and we can do more things like that, that's something that we would be interested in doing. I think anything that we can do to promote that site, because right now, whenever we tell people, where are you located at? Well, if you find the historic courthouse, go north of there so far. Now, we don't have to do that anymore. It's just go to the historic courthouse. I think that, you know, just the amount of foot traffic that's going to be in that building, people wanting to come in just to see what that building looks like. The first thing they're going to do is probably park in the lower lot, come in that back door, and the first thing they're going to see is our office. So I want to take advantage of that to where people that come in say, hey, you know, if you know veterans, have them come in and see us. If they can't come in and see us, let us know. We'll go out to them.
That's great.
I think, have you guys tracked over the time, or are you allowed to track the amount of services that you help people with? Because I think it would be very good for the community over time to see, it's easy to,
Yeah.
you know, expand budgeting if, let's say, 2020 is a tough year because COVID is thrown off, but if in the last 3 or 4 years you average, I don't know, providing $300,000 in assistance to veterans, you should be, or transportation rides or whatever, I think some type of.
We do keep track of that.
Okay, I think that information,
Yeah.
I think that'd be very helpful because it's
Yeah.
as the commissioners have said, veteran services is very important, but we have a lot of areas that are growing in this county, and the requests are
Right.
multiple.
And we're going to be short $10 million based on our budget to sales tax, just in the sales tax area. So it's going to be a tough year.
And I think with your plans, your services should continue the amount of people you're helping. I will tell you as a separate footnote, Delaware County, to Commissioner Merrill's point, is a very kind of unique community. There's a lot of anomalies with our demographics here, and, you know, maybe per capita we don't have as many veterans, maybe the veterans we have don't reach out for assistance. Delaware County is just a very unique, it's really hard to look at comparable counties. You can look at strategies on how to get people, but as far as saying that there's another county that's like ours, as far as needs and stuff, maybe tough to come up with. So, it's probably telling you what you already know, but.
Right.
I'm making a suggestion, I'll let Mike and you guys figure it out, but I would ask that you consider taking the media budget out until you have a chance to sit down and talk about social media, how best to get this information, because those dollars could theoretically be better spent in doing that. I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm just saying, if you take them out, say, through the first quarter, coming to us, it won't be an issue of getting it back in. But you just have to get the
Right.
reasons. But how can those dollars, are those dollars being well spent, or can be better spent? Because those
I don't
dollars are
know.
very illusory. Once you spend them, they're gone.
Right.
On social
We
media.
have done,
on,
I have done some initial work on some of this to where, you know, we looked at, because I looked at the amount that we were paying for Spectrum, and I thought it was astronomical. And, you know, I started looking at, for example, Facebook. Facebook's something to where you can advertise on, to where it comes up.
Yeah.
A lot of people are on that. It doesn't actually cost that much. Another one that it doesn't cost as much you would think, but there's a lot of veterans that listen to the sports talk radio show here in, you know, down in Columbus. And actually on the morning show, one of the hosts is an Air Force veteran. So, you know, that would be potentially a place that we haven't done. It's not as much as you would think it is. So there's some places that we've done some initial work to look at other avenues, but we just haven't had the time to be able to, you know, carry that to the
If
next.
you take that
the next step.
60,000 that you pruned it down to, and take 10 or 15,000 of that to get an expert in social media, somebody who can brainstorm with you and talk about how to improve, not opposed to spending it, I'm opposed to not spending it well.
Right.
Well, I think I wouldn't want to take it out. I know you've been working with Jane on this, and I think it's so much of social media is the most effective social media and media, period, is targeted. And we have the ability to do that now. And working with Jane, because I've
Let
talked
me clarify, what I said was, don't assume the best place to spend it is in media. It could better be spent in social media or whatever, and until they have that conversation,
Well-
evaluation.
Yeah, I think that's what he is. He's already started that, Brian has, with Jane. So, I mean, yeah,
Jane, right, I did have this conversation with Jane, because I asked her as far as what we were spending with Spectrum, and she had the same thought that I did. And, you know, her initial thought was the best place, probably the biggest bang for the buck was probably with social media, to where it's not that much money and you can get a
Yeah.
lot of eyeballs on that. So we've started that conversation.
and the radio advertising often is not all that expensive if it's targeted to, like you mentioned, the
My
West.
point was, you still have Spectrum listed, cable listed, and what I'm trying to say is, that may not be,
Yeah, Spectrum may not be.
We've been holding them off. They're very aggressive in
Well,
their
how do
tactics
you
to
say
try and get us
no?
to
Yeah,
sign with them
I-
again. And
yeah.
we keep telling them, I've got a budget
Yeah.
hearing, not necessarily telling them that I think the amount that,
Yeah,
return
now
on the investment
Spectrum
that we
would
do with
be
them
an
just.
I don't,
The number
I
of people
think too.
that have Hulu and Sling and
Right.
stuff like that,
Yeah.
those commercials aren't seen by those people. It's just those that just have this one cable company, and the number's decreasing. So there's, yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think you're going to find 3 commissioners in this state that want to support the veterans more strongly than we do. Appreciate you taking a step back and pausing and analyzing and coming back to us with a lower number, because we, as Commissioner Merrill said, we do have serious
I was in those
revenue
other departments
issues.
before, so that's why I understand.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right. And
that's right.
there's not a whole lot we can do about the sales tax, you know, in the short term.
Right.
So we do have serious constraints, and that's unfortunate for all of us. But again, I think you're definitely headed in the right direction. You're giving new energy.
Yeah.
I think you're reinforcing your commitment, our commitment to our veterans to serve them as we can, you know, and reach out to them more proactively. I think that's just, you're definitely headed in the right direction. Appreciate the refining of the budget, you know, because we do have a tough year ahead of us. You know, it's just the world we live in.
Yes, sir.
But again, appreciate,
And if you have other,
do I.
you know, what we had talked about as far as, you know, the open house, we discussed that, you know, we'll work with you guys to help us get the word out and,
Sure.
you know, do those things, you know.
I think the veterans would be
mailing list.
excited to see the new veterans location if it's promoted properly.
I think, I
Yeah.
agree. I
Is
think
that your view, or do you have a view on that, or will they be excited about the new location, or?
Excited?
Well, will they be interested, will they be interested in seeing the new location and where to go for services?
We've already discussed having an open house and bringing people in, and yes, as far as being more visible, I believe that's definitely going to be more visible than stuck in the middle of the block.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thank
coming
you.
in. No, thank you for your
Yeah, we're,
paring things down.
First Friday activities,
Right.
could be something, feeding, once you get back out of COVID, feeding people has worked out great.
Yeah.
Want
Right.
to, Scott, anything additional?
No, I know that we're under a little time constraint here, but we have been planning an open house for some time, and we have some nice gifts for the veterans and family members and things we've been putting back, and you're all invited.
All right,
Hopefully
thank
we
you.
can do it,
yeah.
sometime here. Maybe, timing will be an issue, but we're looking forward to that, showcasing our new place. And
Has it been communicated to you when we're moving?
Yes.
We were told this morning by.
Yeah, but we're trying to fold all this into our, our PR media campaign. We want to cast a wide net, hit all the demographics, so we can hit all the age ranges of veterans, and be mindful of that. And Brian's taken the lead on that and done a great job, and he picks my brain once in a while, and I'm sorry about that, too, so.
And,
Dangerous place to go sometimes.
I'd just like to thank Commissioner Ray, too, for your service on VSO. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything for the,
Yep.
Yeah. Again, if you find that you're coming up short
Yeah.
in one of the categories,
Yeah.
please come talk to us. You
Yeah,
know,
let us know.
you.
again, we can't say enough for the veterans and what we owe them and how we want to help them. So,
Thank you.
okay, thank you all
Appreciate it.
very much.
Thank
all
you.
right, thank you.
Turn that off.
Yeah.
All right, well, again, Michael, apologize for. being
Yeah,
late.
thank you, Michael.
Sincerely. I don't know if Mike Romer is coming back or not.
When he gets back, I think.
It's cat herding.
Sorry, I just stepped off for the, I'm gonna ask Veteran Services to do historical services that they provide.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we
We
need,
need to understand.
Yeah,
And we need
that's
to be able
fine.
to document with the new hiring that you guys are getting more services provided from that. And I know that's kind of a hard question.
And I'm not sure I was very clear, but when I saw the word emulate the other counties, that's not what we should be about. It should be about doing the best service we can do.
Got it.
And because another county has X number of employees, doesn't mean we ought to have X. And that's how I
sat through a budget hearing before, so.
oh, I'm sorry, if you could introduce yourself for the record, because we are streaming this for audio.
Michael Ringel, County Treasurer.
Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about my budget proposal today. There are, I think, two main points that I should make about the proposal, and then I can field any questions, because I think there's really only two major changes that I made for fiscal year 2021 compared to fiscal year 2020. The first, and probably what looked like the most alarming change for fiscal year 2020 to 2021, was the consolidation of my employee salary and benefits from two funds, which was the general fund and the treasurer's DTAC fund, Delinquent Tax and Assessment Collection Fund, into solely the general fund. Those figures are a simple combination of what they were between the two funds, with a 2% salary increase going into fiscal year 2021. There's no additional, so those are combined into the general fund. There were no additional expenditures added to the DTAC fund, so it is a net zero between the DTAC fund and the general fund.
How much did that end up being, Mike?
Yeah.
Dollar-wise, the total? I know it's a big number when you transfer that from the DTAC fund to the treasurer's general fund.
For the total appropriation for salary, I have 510,000. And then the benefits for health insurance, 125,000 approximately. Workers' comp, approximately 4,000. The county share of OPERS, approximately 54,000, and then the county share of Medicare, approximately 56.
That's the 2021 budget numbers?
Yes.
Okay, and how much of that was in DTAC last year?
The 510,000 also includes a $120,000 salary for an administrator position that I was going to touch on second. But they were approximately split 50, I want to say 50-50. It might be closer to 60-40, just depending on when the new employees were brought into the office. It seems that Treasurer Peterson, with more recent hires, relied on putting more of their salary and benefits into DTAC.
Okay.
Karen, do you have that salary spreadsheet? 'Cause I want to say it was like 150 to 175,000.
Well, for apples and apples, it's really how many dollars been including the DTAC dollars, not, Those dollars you want to move to the land bank, right?
Sorry,
You want to move some of those dollars from the treasurer's office to the land bank, and you want to fund it through this general fund, the salaries, correct?
So the purpose of moving the salaries and benefits out of DTAC to the general fund is so that there's more oversight over those expenses, and it also allows the funds that are in DTAC to be used potentially for land bank operations.
But for the purposes of making a reasonable comparison, by taking those dollars out, it makes it a 78% increase. It really isn't a 78% increase.
Right, that's why I was after.
The point is, we need to be comparing apples and apples. It's a separate question about whether the general fund funds the land bank or those funds replace those funds in DTAC. But for an apples-to-apples comparison, increase isn't 78%.
Correct.
So right now, I'm interested in what the real number is. Another question philosophically is whether we move those dollars and fund it 100% through the general fund, or we provide that funding into the land bank fund. Does that make sense?
I believe so.
Okay, but 78% is painting a picture that you're asking for more than you're asking for.
Yes.
That's the point I'm trying to make right now, so.
Do you have that number, Karen? No, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's where I was headed too, is to understand what, and I think it boils down to 2% salary increase plus the new deputy director position that you're
Yes.
talking about. So it's those two pieces that cause,
Otherwise,
are the
it's
real increase.
And I could extrapolate, it's probably around 25%, 25% increase, probably. So we'll see how close I get. Yeah, the real increase. Leaving apples and apples. Which is basically the 2% plus the
new position.
$120,000.
I would agree with that.
Something in that range.
It looks like before, I haven't taken the 2% out raises for this year, but it looks like it's about $155,000, which was paid for, expenses that were paid for directly by the DTAC fund.
And that 640,000 roughly, you take the 122 off that, that's 520. 120 of 520 is roughly 25%.
I do think though it has where was the money going to be spent? Is it going to be land bank?
Which money?
The DTAC money that is not. You said it could be land bank or other things.
It's not currently, in my proposal, it's not I'm not asking for an appropriation of that same expense. So I'm not increasing any DTAC line items. I'm just simply moving the DTAC line items for salary and benefit to the general fund.
You're moving it for land bank though, correct?
Not specifically for land bank. The DTAC fund primarily benefits the land bank or can benefit the land bank. It is mostly for the facilitation of delinquent tax collection by my office. And statute permits that there be appropriations from DTAC to the land bank. But I'm also, with moving the salary and benefits to the general fund, I'm not asking for an additional appropriation for the land bank at this time.
How much money is in the DTAC that's going to be carried over this year? I know that there was this, because that was the one that.
Yeah, it has, it's got a big balance in it.
Is it a million?
How much money is in the land bank? Is that what you said?
No,
No,
I can't-
DTAC,
how much money did we carry over in DTAC?
DTAC,
Oh,
We talked about that when
okay.
separate,
Yeah, that was,
the money allocated
Jans, I've forgotten when we talked about that.
towards the land bank.
There was discussion about that when it was,
Yep, yep.
Okay.
I do not have the cash detail for DTAC with me at the moment.
So I guess I think what's being said is, what is the real increase? And somewhere in 20-25% range, I'm guessing, but we're going to get that number next day or so. And then the number of dollars that we're replacing, if those DTAC dollars aren't being used, so it's just going to sit there in an account not being used? Other than what discretionary dollars the land bank needs at any given time?
Yes, for the land bank's potential future use. As the land bank currently does not have any inventory besides the historic jail, I didn't think it would be prudent to appropriate X number of dollars for properties that we won't hypothetically, the land bank may not hypothetically possess until the end of calendar year 2021.
Anyway, I think you know how I feel about it, so. Okay.
Karen, you don't know the balance in DTAC, do you? The balance in the fund. Yeah, this, yeah, if you could, I think it would help. This is one of the things, Mike, you and I were just talking about this, is we got the general fund and we have all these other funds, and I don't know what's sitting in DTAC because it's in all these other funds that we don't really look at. So that's part of the frustration is we don't look at these dozens of other funds that we vote on, nevertheless. So.
The only other point that I wanted to make, and we've already touched on it, was that the salary line item for the general fund also includes a $120,000 salary for a potential administrator position for my office. That position would focus on tax lien management. This individual could potentially be a candidate for an executive director for the land bank if the board for the land bank so decided. But they would also tackle other special projects that would focus on things such as investments in infrastructure that could not only provide a return to taxpayers for the county's investment portfolio, but could further economic development interests by the commissioners.
Yeah, that is particularly intriguing to me, because as we all painfully, and if you're an investor, know, rates are so low, they're almost zero. So our $225 to $260 million portfolio is earning
14 basis points.
Yeah, 14 basis points. I mean, almost zero, which is incredible. But, and we have this need for infrastructure, additions to infrastructure through, through large portions of the county. And we've got this pool of money that is sitting there earning almost nothing. And yet, can we divert some of that responsibly to further infrastructure development, which furthers economic development, which furthers other sources of revenues to the county? Not only would it be a higher yield to the county's portfolio, but it would foster additional economic development, business development, that would then in turn pay additional taxes and help with job growth and all the other positives of good economic development. So I'm intrigued by that, and I think this deputy director could really take the lead on that, and working with the state treasurer that I'm working with and others, figure out ways to responsibly invest that money in some of these infrastructure projects which could further economic development. So I think that makes a lot of sense, to consider that one of their key responsibilities, assuming we get that go-ahead.
The auditor just sent me a text of the DTAC treasurer balance of $1.3 million.
What is it, 1 point?
$1,301,899.
Yeah, and that just kind of, is one of those things that of the 250 million-ish that Mike invests, $1.3 million is sitting in the DTAC fund.
So why should the general fund subsidize the treasurer's funding mechanism when we've got $1.3 million sitting there? At least in this year that was coming up with the critical issues that we're going to be dealing with.
Can we transfer money out of the DTAC fund? Or it can be, but for
What's
what
been used
purpose?
now currently for salary?
I think it gets back to the purpose for the treasurer's DTAC funds, and it's for facilitating delinquent tax collection. And I don't know that purpose is properly being carried out by investing that money in salary and benefits.
Sitting idly is a good use of that money, 1.3 million?
No. I agree that that's not a good use, but I think with the increased activity of the land bank, that can be quickly put to use. My perspective on the revenue going into DTAC is that hypothetically, if my office is doing its job correctly, delinquent tax collections should decrease, as you should have higher collections, which means there are less delinquencies to then collect on, less revenue to go into the DTAC fund. If that persists and salary and benefits would continue to increase even marginally, you would very quickly, probably in 5 years or so, have a situation where you have a fund that has decreasing revenues, increasing expenses that would potentially go under. My proposal for fiscal year 2021 is to start righting the ship before we get to that situation by moving the salary and benefits to a spot where they are, there's additional oversight, but then they're also combined so that there's a holistic picture, which I think, as Commissioner Benton spoke to, I don't think is often seen when you have the general fund and all these miscellaneous funds that you have to look at as well.
I think Commissioner Romero's raising a good point. That money's just sitting there and isn't going to be used anytime in the near future. What can we do with that money? Could we transfer it back into the general fund through your office, other vehicles, and reduce the need for
Or
general
issues it
fund
with the salaries in the
budget?
treasurer's office.
Yeah.
I don't believe it can be transferred back to the general fund. The treasurer's office could potentially spend it on things such as salary and benefits that would generally be
Which we've been
considered. Correct.
What
That
you're
are
proposing to stop doing by transferring the salary and
Yes.
benefits
It
back.
accomplishes the same goal, Commissioner Benton.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. So you're not sure if it could be just drawn down by $500,000 and thrown into the general fund?
No, I don't believe it can be. It could be potentially moved to an entity like the land bank, though, because that is explicitly provided in statute.
But we don't have that need today. And if we had the need today, the general fund, we could always provide those dollars if the need arose.
The purpose of the fund, Michael, you just said was what again?
A delinquent tax collection?
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay.
So there is,
Yeah.
and that's an ongoing, you're going to have that forever in the treasurer's office. I mean, that is an ongoing salary and related
Yeah,
effort that requires true spending and some ancillary stuff, I'm sure. So, but I think that's raising a good point, is if that money is not frozen, but it's isolated over there and can't be retrieved, then by moving this money back over to the treasurer's office general fund, are we just exacerbating that and making it a bigger balance than it would have been otherwise, and creating more stress on a stressed general fund? Because we have a stressed general fund now because of the sales tax revenue being flat. So maybe, I kind of thinking it through, maybe now's not the time to make that change, if that's the only way we can get DTEC money moved or the balance reduced, because otherwise it's just going to continue to increase.
My fear is that the money in DTAC will continue to be spent on salary and benefits, and then when it is needed for land bank activities.
But that won't be an issue in the next 12 months.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is short term, maybe we just say, wait a second, we're not, the land bank's not going to be that active next year, and DTAC, yeah, there's going to be work on delinquent taxes, probably more next year than this year, just because of the delinquencies that will go up some. So maybe next year isn't the year to do this. I understand your long-term concern, I really do.
yeah, I can understand why you raised it, yeah.
But I
Yeah.
certainly think that's at your discretion. My proposal is just to try and clean up the house, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah,
So, understand.
sure, yeah.
But would that help us, Mike, that would help us on our general
help us.
fund
It's
budget?
almost like it really is, if you look at things from a general fund standpoint, because this is a separate fund, it's kind of like the transfer station, it just, you can't, the money goes there. So it really is a 78% increase on the general kind of a double whammy with the 120 salary and then
Yeah.
salary. You know, if you would have, maybe use, it's just a double, it's kind of a double.
Yeah, I mean, again, initially I was thinking, it's really, I'm relatively indifferent because it's all county money. But with the general fund being the main focus and where the sales tax revenues are impacting the most, and this building a bigger balance in the DTAC fund at the cost of the general fund, kind of now rethinking it is, I'm not sure that next year is the year to do that. Again, I understand your long-term concern because you don't want to wipe out the DTAC fund.
How much does that fund grow per, last 2 or 3 years, how much has it grown each year? How much has it brought in? Because you'd say it didn't grow because you applied it towards salaries.
What goes into it? Isn't it like 2% of the proceeds of delinquent tax collection?
2.5%.
2.5%. Okay, so
So how much money came in the last 12 months or last 24 months?
For 2019, and I'm just recalling from memory, I believe it was approximately, let's see, half a percentage would have been 50,000.
We may get a text from the auditor while we're waiting.
yeah, that's right. George probably has that number memorized.
Come on, Si, hurry up.
I would imagine or hazard a guess around 200,000.
So if we're at 1.5, it's going to grow to 1.7.
You did that analysis.
If we do nothing.
We did that
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah, that'd be in there. It's 1.3, so it'd grow to 1.5.
Yeah, I can't
Because I
remember.
know you
And he said,
showed
well,
over
yeah, 1.3,
time
that's
about
actually right.
funding, it
So
was
it's going to go to 1.5.
So,
non-existent,
So,
or maybe 5.
To me, it doesn't make,
That's what I recall.
it's not the year to.
well, again, initially I was just thinking, well, big picture, it's all county money, so it doesn't really make a difference. But
It does make a
it
difference.
does make a difference to the general fund, which is our main focus.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
Problem is with the COVID year,
Yeah, I mean, again, the
That's-
sales tax revenues is not going to be good next year, most likely. And therefore, transferring more expense into the general fund. Again, I guess, that's where you and I talked before, and I was kind of shoulder shrugging. It's just in one pocket out of the other, but it is really the general fund. So I guess I'm landing on now's not the year, 2021's not the year to make this change. So.
Yeah, just my concern that it will,
Eventually.
the math will not look pretty in a couple
Well,
of years,
but
and it'd be
the
better to
key is
take care
your-
of it before.
The key is your office decides what is that minimum balance a year from now, and that's the number we try to stay above, rather than just letting it grow without any concern about how much it grows. As Commissioner Benton said, we have limited ways to use those dollars, and there's a lot of stress on the general fund right now. And that's understating it, actually.
so what do we need to
It
decide
wouldn't be
today?
hard to move that money back, would it, into the DTAC, the expense, salary and benefits? I mean, that's a,
Change the budget numbers.
okay. So would you be okay with that, Mike? Is that, you've made your point.
I've made my
Yeah.
point. I'll just
We
say that.
understand you're, in the long run, I think you're absolutely right. It's just,
But you understand the logic in the next year, 2 years?
But again, I think we're relying on what we hope the future to hold. Next year, maybe there's some other issue that is restricting general fund usage, but at some point, those salary and benefits that are in DTAC are going to continue to grow from year to year, presumably. And I would think it would be better to get them out while they're smaller and more manageable than wait until they are not manageable and then they cause a detriment to the fund, or say next year the land bank needs to make a larger expenditure to not have
The
to.
land bank needs the money, the general fund would likely provide it. If that situation presented itself.
yeah, it's always a source, sure. So you okay if we move it back?
I don't think it's a good idea, but I would not be upset.
And I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah, I don't
long term.
either.
It's just for next year, we've got this odd year where we're not growing sales tax revenue. So, okay, well, let's try to do that. What else? Mike, other comments that you wanted to make on the budget?
Nope, that was the only real request for fiscal year 20 to 2021. Everything else was flat.
Okay.
Now, I looked at your job description, but I didn't read it. You talk about this person has investment expertise. Is that stated very clearly in the job description?
Yes, and I think it's, when you go into, so this was a draft, my office has put together a draft job description for this potential position. And in the description detail, we talk about some of the activities that that individual would need to do, and the financial acumen is played out there. I think also it's referenced in the job standards of accounting practice experience being desired. So I think that financial side of the position is incorporated.
Yeah, I think conservatively, I really think not next year immediately, but maybe the following year after we get some investment programs in place where we're investing in infrastructure or other avenues and providing a higher return to the portfolio, it will more than pay for that.
Well, my question was,
job.
does the job description make it clear that we're looking for a person that has that skill set?
Yes.
Yeah, well, in fact, Mike and I talked about that this morning, saying we need to add in there that infrastructure investment management needs to be part of it.
Was that in the copy I saw or not?
I don't think it was.
I provided each of the commissioners a draft.
So I haven't
Right.
seen the revised version then?
No, not from my
It hasn't been
conversation with
revised
Commissioner
yet.
Benton.
Because among the other things they can do, that is one thing I think we have a real opportunity to
Well,
have a win-win, and pay for that job, and do a whole bunch of other things like that we're thinking about, the delinquent tax collection, land bank, et cetera.
While talking about this position, maybe I could propose a potential, I don't want to say compromise, but with the position salary, perhaps we could keep that in the general fund, since it is an increase, the potential benefits there as well, and then keep what is currently in DTAC.
well, I wouldn't agree to that today. What I'd like to see is how this 120 plus benefits, this 150,000, what is it going to generate to offset that 150? And assuming the number, well, I don't want to assume anything right now, then that might help me justify why. But the DTAC has the funds for the next 12 months to take care of both, the current salaries plus that. So I'm not prepared to make a compromise today. I want to say, show me what it's going to generate to pay for the 150. It's going to be investment increases. How's it going to pay for itself? And then I could better comment on that. Does that
My
make-
worry-
that make sense?
Yeah,
Having-
that's the way we look at it in the business world, is if you're gonna add a person, you gotta make them pay for themselves.
My worry with adding the position to DTAC is that will further exacerbate the issue created by having salaries and expenses there in the first place.
My worry is the 150,000, we're not recovering in extra productivity, generation of revenue, and that's what I'm asking to see. Which then helps justify the argument you're trying to make.
And I think that the revenues that will come from, I'm assuming that primary revenues are going to be for the interest portfolio
For DTAC?
for this person. The justification for this person is going to be the performance of our portfolio, right?
In my mind, that's the main source of revenue that offsets the additional expense.
And that revenue does come into the general fund,
Yes.
correct, Aaron? So the interest income would come into the general fund, so your request of it, that salary coming out of the general fund makes a lot of sense, because that's where the revenue will come in.
Yes.
If you can, with credibility, I mean, I don't mean that the way it's intended, but be able to justify where those dollars are coming from, to his point, it's much easier to justify us covering in the general fund.
Are you looking at a full year of the person? I mean, because
Yes.
at 120, it would be starting January 1, which
to happen since it's December 1st today.
But I think that also, it worries me for long-term planning for DTAC, that when we did the math, potentially 5 years, the fund could be negative with this additional expense, and any potential increase in it, it could be much sooner than that, which certainly would hamstring the land bank in its activities when it should be probably at its most productive. So that's my concern.
Understand. Good point. We agree, we're just not agreeing for next year. I don't know, anything else? Anything else, Mike?
I do not have anything else.
Okay. I think
Unless there's any other
that's-
questions that you might have.
I think that's a valid point. I mean, let's take a look at what revenue can be generated to help offset this additional cost. So,
And I think, my office can provide so I'm assuming the auditor's office, or maybe Karen could as well, provide the actual cash that went into the fund for 2019. That might help with contemplating where the expenses should lie.
okay, anything else? Gary, Barbara?
Thank you,
anything else?
Michael.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay,
Now what do we do?
yeah, and what do we do now?
Recess until 9:30 tomorrow morning.
So we are in recess.
9:30 in the morning?
9:30